Welcome to the Friends of Dan Music Podcast. I'm Dan Miles. You've been listening to the music of Christian Nesmith. That was from an album he released in 2006 called An Axe to Grind. In recent years, he's been devoting his considerable talents to the career of his partner in music and in life, Circe Link. If you haven't heard the interview I did with Circe, I recommend checking it out as it makes a perfect companion piece to this one, kind of a part one, part two type thing. And now, let's get him on the line. Joining me on the phone from Los Angeles, California, is Christian Nesmith. Welcome.
Hi, Dan. How are you?
I'm doing great. It's a pleasure to be speaking with you. Before we start talking about the work you've done with Circe Link, I want to talk a little about your solo album, An Axe to Grind. I just played a track called Buggin', which is one of the 3 instrumentals on the album. There are also 8 vocal tracks. Your playing on it is reminiscent of, the many guitar heroes on the scene like Joe Satriani, Steve Morse, Gary Hoey, among many others. Apart from the play on words of a guitar also being called an axe, is there any other significance to that title? Because the phrase usually implies anger about something.
Yeah, it does, and I thought that it was just a funny thing. Actually, Circe and I sort of came up with it together. We were just sort of brainstorming, but there was nothing that I was really angry about in particular, although I will say that the subject matter of that album, which is now, 10 years old, is it was right around the time that I was getting sober, and there was a lot of contemplative journeys, shall we say, at the time. And you can see some of that. Some of that's pointed at other people. Some of it's veiled as other people pointed at me, and some of it's veiled pointed at me. But it's about other people. So it's kind of a contemplative album. But I wouldn't say that the title was specifically chosen to denote anger. No.
No, it's more of a nod to the guitar-oriented nature of it. And yeah, there's pretty much any title you can read secret meanings into if you really want to. But what you said is what I assumed. It's basically a little play on words about being a guitar player and axe to grind. As far as the vocal songs on the album, the combination of the heavy guitars and the strong melodies and harmonies, it reminds me of King's X. I know you're friends with those guys, and you've contributed to Ty Tabor's solo work. And this material is obviously quite different than what you do with Circe. So was it a case of just wanting to sort of document your harder side?
Well, I've been a hard rock guitar player from day one.
Right.
I've been an all-around guitar player from day one, but, hard rock, Zeppelin and Rush and Van Halen and Aerosmith and all of those bands that were so prominent when I was a teenager were very influential, and it just spoke to me. So, you said earlier talking about Steve Morse, that was a big hit for me. And then and King's X, I was definitely a fan before I was friends with them. And I make I tell Ty just about every time I see him, it's like, okay, check out another thing I ripped off from you, dude.
Well, I love Ty Tabor and his guitar playing and his writing and his singing, but he got it from someone else too. Let's be honest. You guys just do it. You both do it really well, but the influences of Hendrix and all the other people are clear. But you just do it well. That's important enough.
Well, actually, you'd be surprised that of some of Ty's influences. He maintains that one of his biggest influences is Lindsey Buckingham and also Brian May, and so there's. Ty and I are very much birds of a feather in that we have a very broad background of influences. So to try and pigeonhole where you're at is always tough. I love all that hard rock stuff, but I'm a big fan of Leo Kottke, and I love Manhattan Transfer and Stevie Wonder and Elton John, and it just it goes on and on and on.
The reason I ask about wanting to document your harder side, so this was about 8 years ago you did this, and it was kind of like almost like once was enough. Part of it is because you're so involved with the other projects, but it's kind of like, okay, everybody, I can do this if I want to. I'm not going to do 10 of these. I'll do this one. Maybe later down the road I'll feel like doing it again, because you are so versatile. I like this album. I like what it represents, and I'm about the same age as you, maybe a couple years older. And all those people you mentioned, I mean, that was my, my teen years too.
Yeah. I mean, that's the stuff you listen to when you're sitting on the bedroom floor with your best friend, smoking a couple and just listening to the album sides on end.
Well, yeah, Jimmy Page and Alex Lifeson and Brian May and all those guys were my guitar teachers, basically.
Absolutely, mine too. Absolutely.
Well, I want to play one of my favorite vocal tracks from that album to give our listeners a flavor of it. So from An Axe to Grind, here's a tasty track called Thin Blue Screen. Well, that does rock. And like I said, that combination of elements reminds me of King's X. And speaking of which, when Cersei was here, I told her there were a few of her tracks I wanted to save until your episode, a strategy which she heartily endorsed, by the way. These would be your creative reimaginings of hard rock songs like Alice Cooper's Muscle of Love and Black the Sky by King's X, both of which you adapted into a country style. You also took an Ozzy Osbourne song and reworked it into a sort of silky lounge style, which I actually prefer to his version because I think your take on it does more justice to the lyrics and the melody. So I'm curious about your initial inspiration. Did you just hear these particular songs and have a revelation, or was there some trial and error involved?
Well, I mean, because Sergey and I also live together, we're sitting around playing guitar all the time, and just thinking of various things that we just enjoy. I wouldn't be surprised if somewhere in our future we do a cover of Judas Priest's "Sinner."
Cool.
So, but it's not really by design. It just happened to work that way. But what was also cool is that with Sergey's voice being so beautiful and so pure, to have her have a love of Ozzy and Judas Priest and Alice Cooper and on, it was an interesting juxtaposition. So if you're going to do a cover of a hard rock song, like the whole album that Pat Boone did, it came off a little bit as a joke, and I think Stephen Eady did Black Hole Sun, but the problem is that those guys never grew up loving that music. Yeah. Some publicity guys said, "Ooh, wouldn't it be funny or fun or lucrative to make a record of heavy metal albums done by Stephen Eady Gourmet?" Okay, but the thing is that though Cersei's voice is pure, she is an old blue mohawk punk rocker from way back. Yeah. So she won't. I tell her to break out the pictures. She won't do it.
Well, I'm not really an expert on it. I didn't see Ozzy's reality show. I think what happened is Pat Boone did Crazy Train for the theme of that, which was kind of funny, and then somebody said, well, let's blow it up into a whole album, and that might be why it felt kind of thin and forced.
Maybe. I mean, I don't know the history behind it.
Yeah, I don't know.
But you can feel that there is a lack of authenticity to it. While it goes down in the annals as one of those legends, hey, remember when Pat Boone did all the heavy metal? It's not the same thing. And plus, it's novelty. Right. And there's a difference between that and Cersei and I giving a nod to our heroes, but still maintaining Cersei's style. And it takes a certain amount of artistry to make it work. We're not going to put something out that comes off as a novelty song. We want it to be good, and that's why I think that No More Tears and Black the Sky and the like work. And even doing Alice Cooper's Muscle of Love, Alice Cooper's got camp right up to his eyebrows, so that works anyway.
Yeah, true. It's also not like you guys made a habit of this. The 3 tracks are on 3 different albums, so it's not like you did 12 tracks of the same thing. You just kind of slipped them in here and there, which is also kind of cool.
Right.
In the case of Pat Boone, I kind of feel like they were bringing him tunes he never even heard before. Hey, Pat, do this Guns N' Roses song. He's never even heard it before. It's not like like you're saying, he had no history with it at all.
Exactly my point. Yeah. Whereas Cersei and I, were banging heads as teenagers to those very tracks. So it was it made absolute sense.
Well, particularly after hearing An Axe to Grind, it doesn't surprise me that you're connected to him. But the interesting thing is the way you flipped him into the quote-unquote cowboy jazz. I would say that Alice Cooper and King's X are more on the cowboy, and No More Tears is more on the jazz, if you know what I'm saying. It's an oversimplification, but if people hear all 3. So what I want to do is I want to play your version of Ozzy's No More Tears, which is on Cersei's Let's Go Together album from 2004. But first I'm going to give the listeners a little taste of the original so they can contrast and compare.
Ooh, that is contrast.
So let's do that. Here are 2 versions of No More Tears.
The light in the window is a crack in the sky. A stairway to darkness in the blink of an eye. A levee of tears to learn she'll never be coming back. Look in the mirror, tell me, do you think your life's in danger here? No more tears, no more tears.
Well, it's definitely a cool twist. Again, that can be found on Circe's Let's Go Together album. If you also want to hear her versions of the King's X and Alice Cooper songs I mentioned, they're on her One Drop of Poison and Moody Girl CDs, respectively. When Circe was here, we spoke about your tour of Japan, and we played a track from the live album you recorded over there. You went over there as a four-piece with just yourself on guitar plus a second guitarist, and Circe on vocals plus a second vocalist. No drums, no keys, no bass. So
Right.
was the reason for that instrumentation purely economical, or were there other factors at play?
Oh, believe me, I wish I could take the 8-man band everywhere.
Yeah.
But it's not. It still holds water. My handle for a long time was Campfire Man, and that was given to me by one of our musical friends, and who is all over all Circe records. His name is Michael Sherwood.
Yeah.
And the reason why I got that handle is that I would, after we would play a gig, we wind up back. This is with my old band, a band called Milk, and that band was socially involved with several other different bands, and I had a big recording studio at the time, and we would all wind up back over there, or we would wind up at a friend's house or some sort of party, and invariably I'd wind up with a guitar in my hands, an acoustic guitar, going through album sides of cover songs that I know, because I know, I have a way of being able to play through songs that I've heard before. And I got that actually from my not childhood, but my first real musical partner. He's a guy named Tony Tassis. He lives in Greece now. He's native Greek. But we spent a lot of time around with acoustic guitars, and he showed me how percussive and how representational of the bass line an acoustic guitar can be. So if you've got guitar and bass and drums all on one guitar, it tends to hold water. And I have a very percussive style when I play acoustic anyway.
Yeah.
So that tends to work out. And then you get a guy like Art Ryan, who was the second guitar player on the live record out there, who's a fantastic soloist, and he's just one of those guys who just lets it all hang out. It was always wonderful to see whether Bart was going to, blast off to the moon or run right into the weeds. You never knew. That was the fun of it.
Yeah.
And so he would, between the two of us, he's got the color covered, and I've got the rhythm section covered. So, what do you need with the rest of the stuff? But believe me, I really, the bass drums and full background vocals and keys and a fiddle, and anytime.
Yeah, but you know what, man? A bare, stripped-down sound like that, it creates an intimate vibe, that's kind of unique, and it can be revealing for the artist and appealing for the listener. And, that album was comprised of studio tracks, live versions of studio tracks from 3 previous albums, so it kind of forced you to do sort of different versions of them, so it's not just like a recreation of the exact studio recording.
Remember that, those songs were written, just sitting in our living room with one acoustic guitar and a voice.
Right. True. Yeah.
And we could, we could feel what the song was about right in that sort of incarnation.
Well, that's a good point too. Yeah.
Yeah, but that said, the way I work, and when I feel like as a producer, when I feel like the song is theirs, if I can hear the song finished in my head, I sort of work like Michelangelo. You just carve away everything that doesn't look like the guy.
Yeah.
That's how I work. So if it's finished in my head, then I just go and grab the instruments and lay them down.
Sure.
And so, though I'm sitting there with a single acoustic guitar, I'm feeling the full band in my head. And I don't know whether that's because I come from a more large sound in my youth. We were talking about loving hard rock as a kid, and largely produced albums, and I loved the Beatles, and I was a big Journey fan, and a big Queen fan, and so that giant sound really resonates with me, and I feel that it's, I wouldn't say a struggle, but trying to find the balance where Cersei likes to keep it a bit more stripped down, and I want to make it gigantic.
Yeah.
But because of that, we work well as each other's foil, and I think that we come up with something, you know, in the middle that really works well.
I agree. That's a good time to play a sample from that Live in Japan album that demonstrates some of these things we're talking about. So from the Live in Japan album, here's Cersei Link and my guest Christian Nesmith with Travelin' Daddy.
Gin glass, I throw my head back, I wash down these traveling blues. I lost my good man down in the Badlands. I wanna bring him back home to me. Traveling daddy, your evil ways got me swimming in a haze. Traveling daddy, I'll make you stay, and you won't go traveling no more. I sing a sad song because my man's gone. He skipped town with the brown bottle flu. A boxcar mister, a crazy drifter, a carpetbagger with a hole in his shoe. Traveling daddy, your cold dark eyes got me believing all your lies. If you wanted to leave me, then all I can say, traveling daddy, you'll be back one day. I smell the night air, I comb my long hair, I break bones like a southern hoodoo. I burn your picture, I call for twisters, I hold tight to my lover's juju. Traveling daddy, your long dark hair, I see your face everywhere. But while you are running, you'll soon understand. deserve you, 'cause this woman's gonna get you. Traveling daddy, traveling man, traveling daddy, traveling man. Thank you. Still mourning that song.